I'm glad to hear that.
Oh, you're gonna be so excited.
And that's different for sandpaper, basically.
Yeah, you know, like,
Sandpaper?
yeah. Yep, you do it by hand, that final buffing out, we're gonna do by hand.
What grade?
Well, actually, okay, if you guys want, I can just briefly go over this quick.
I don't want to split it
Yeah,
down.
the whole procedure would be nice to just know what we're headed for.
Okay.
This is running thin, but turn on
This here. This part.
Yeah.
We get our billet, it's still on the handle, still on handle, okay? We pound it in shape, okay? Take from this, when it's still on your handle, okay? Stick in front of the face of the forge, we heat it at non-magnetic, let it air cool. Stick it at non-magnetic, let it air cool. Stick it up to non-magnetic, let it stick into vermiculite. Okay, that's step one. Okay, hardening. Put clay in the back. There's two different ways to do this. We'll get into that. You can quench just that air. Anytime you take something hot, I'm covering this really fast.
You're throwing them off by telling them it's still attached to the handle, because they need to have the tang formed and everything before they
Oh,
nail it.
okay.
You're throwing them off a little
Okay,
bit.
I'm sorry about that. Okay. So the next step is this. We can put clay on, we got sanding clay, and do it the old Japanese style, and harden that edge, okay? And anytime you throw something hot into oil or water, it forms an air barrier around it. It's an insulation barrier. By moving it back and forth, like Cody was saying, breaks those air barriers. Okay, and I'm covering this real fast, okay? Then, you could just quench that edge, moving it back and forth in the oil. And the oil's about 120, you know, roughly.
Degrees?
Yeah.
I'd say, yeah, 150 to 200, somewhere in there, right? So you get
Yeah, I
something
do a
cool.
little cooler than Cody does.
Just somewhere you can
Yeah.
barely keep your.
Fight!
Yeah. And, so, you grind it after this, okay? And you can put clay on, that'll keep and you thin it out towards the blade and wipe it off the blade. And that's one style of doing it. We're gonna be doing some of that, okay? Depending on what you're making on your blade. If it's a dagger, you can't be doing that as much, okay? So that's this step, okay? Toaster oven is this step.
So, putting the clay on, that's in order to get the most hardness on the blade and the
Yes,
least brittleness
exactly.
in the knife.
Exactly.
Okay.
And the flexibility.
Okay, in that step, we will anneal with the blade attached to the.
No.
No,
Your
no,
blade-
I misspoke.
As soon as you've got it in the shape, you take it off the handle.
Yeah. You need to have your tang formed,
Yeah.
profile pretty much set, and ready to grind and ready to
Does
go.
does your tank formation, you still do that when it's on the handle?
No, you have to bust out the handle at that point.
Okay.
Very end. You grab a pair of box tongs from this end and you just start hammering it out.
Gotcha.
Okay? When Dave's talking, do you have something else to say? When he's talking about the clay, okay, you gotta think about a knife blade in this shape, having 3 different sections in it, okay? When he's talking about putting that clay on, he's gonna put a really thick layer on that spine. He's gonna put a little thinner layer, you know, here. Okay? And the very bottom, basically no clay at all, or none. Okay? What the clay does, it acts as an insulator. So that leaves that spine as soft as possible. Okay? Then you got this spot, which is a little bit thinner clay, not as thick, which isn't going to insulate it as much, it's going to make it a little bit harder, but still create, you know, a fairly soft region. Okay? And then this has no clay on it, and it's going to quench really quickly and harden quickly. Okay? So you have your 3 transition, you know, 3 areas of, you know, kind of differential heat treating in that single blade. And the reason that is, this spine, that gives you your flexibility, right? And you want to have something in between there that meets your soft spine and your hard edge. Okay? And if we didn't have clay on there, all we would do is we would just quench this cutting edge in the oil. That's the only part of that blade that is touching the oil. Okay? It's just that bottom section. And the top is going to be left, softer.
And if you can imagine a coil spring, back up just one here, between 3 and 4, between the hardening and the tempering, and you figure a coil spring is really wound up. And this is the best way I know how. Cody explains a little bit different, but this is the best way I can explain it. Within that, you hardened it now, and it's so hard that if you drop it or flake it against a bone, you could crack it. It's so damn hard. So we have to pull a little bit out of that, and it's a coil spring because it's tightly wound between where you, this point and this point. This point ain't that bad, but this point and this point, there's a tight spring in there. And it just wound up. Well, we've got to relax that spring some, so that's why we stick it and cycle it in the toaster oven to pull some of that down to relax that spring. Does that make sense?
When you put it in the oven, you put that clay on it before you put it in the oven?
No.
Clay is for the hardening part, and then the clay comes off, and then you temper it.
Yeah. But it's like a wound up spring in there. And you got to relax that spring so it ain't so brittle.
But even when you're done with that, what was the brittle, hardest edge would become less brittle and less hard.
Little less, yep, for sure. It's just gonna have a little bit of that stress taken out.